Welcome to the Louder Than Silence podcast with your host, CG Wagner. Just a few months ago, we took a bit of a break from our Survivors Have Paid Enough series to start a new series, Meet the Team. Over the next few months, I am interviewing different members of our staff, our board, and our key volunteers to get a feel for who's doing this work and what they bring to the team. I'm excited to introduce these amazing people and the impact that they have on the work that we do at LTS. We are on episode 4 of this series with Amy Silva, who is our board secretary. Amy joined the LTS board in July of 2024. As a little background on Amy, Amy is friends with a founding board member of LTS. In 2021, Amy saw a social media post that the friend had made about a garage sale fundraiser to benefit our work. Without knowing the details of LTS, Amy showed up wanting to donate items for the cause and asked me, CG, for more info about LTS. As CG described the support and resources that are given free of charge to survivors, tears ran down Amy's face as her body reacted physically to the words and to the information that CG was sharing. It dawned on her that she fell into the category of survivors that LTS was created to support and had a glimpse of hope and healing that brought her to tears. Amy quickly became a community member, benefiting from a workshop cohort, EMDR, and is now proudly serving on the board and giving back her time and resources that was made possible by the investment that LTS made into her healing journey. Amy is the mother of 2 daughters, a principal of an architecture firm, a wife to her opposite but soulmate husband. She enjoys grandma hobbies. That is her description, not mine. She enjoys grandma hobbies like fiber arts, macrame and weaving, and being out in nature, unless the mosquitoes are out, which is very understandable. Amy, thank you for joining this and for being part of the conversation today.
Yeah.
So can you start by just like telling us a little bit more about yourself? And is there anything in particular people listening should know about you?
I guess I covered a lot of it in my bio, but I am a local Austinite. Grew up here since I was 3 years old, which I think is pretty rare nowadays.
Hmm.
Went to school here, got my first job here, and now I have a family here, so we don't plan on leaving. Yeah, I think Austin has a really unique mix of people and cultures. Growing up, I am obviously a minority, went to a private school and then public school and was surrounded by a lot of different diverse backgrounds. And so I think that's shaped my perception to be very much like, I want to hear everyone's stories. And there's never really a straightforward answer to anything. And I think that's a positive to how I meet people because you can't judge a book by its cover, especially in Austin. And I love the mix of people that we have.
Yes, same. There's a great mix of people here in Austin.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump right in.
Okay.
How has being connected to LTS impacted your life?
Yeah. I think being connected to LTS first is a big step of vulnerability because people will ask, what is LTS? And then when they find out who it serves, then there's implying of what circumstances and situations you've been in yourself. So I think it's the first step of being vulnerable, of talking about your story if you're comfortable. And then it usually opens up doors to other people who have similar stories or they know of someone who does. So being connected to LTS is like an automatic getting deeper into conversations, which I personally do love. Like I am not someone who likes surface chatting. I'm like, tell me your deepest, darkest life, you know,
Yes.
what is your background and what shared traumas do we have? But I found that it just is a lot more relatable when you're showing vulnerability and
Mhm.
that if you look like you have it all together on the outside, you probably don't have it on the inside or you weren't always that way.
Mhm.
So they're really vulnerable conversations, whether or not they can relate specifically to LTS's community or something else
Right.
in life we want to share about.
Right. Yes, I have certainly found the same that even if somebody that I'm talking to doesn't have the same like background traumas that I do, that there's still a like, oh, you understand like these hard experiences and you're willing to create the space for talking about it. And it doesn't surprise me that you say that, given that our first interaction was as we described in your bio, that it was a like, all right, we're diving into this. We're doing this right now. And there's something to be said for allowing for those connections to happen. It's something that I particularly enjoy about you and how you interact with people. Would you mind getting into what the EMDR process was like for you?
Yeah. Um, I would say when I started with the wait list was about a year. So I think it was good to have a year in between finishing the workshops and then like mentally prepping myself for what possibly this EMDR experience would be like. I
Hmm.
think I only had one person that I spoke to who was going through it. And she kind of had the same attitude as me as like, we're gonna just knock it out, jump right in, it's gonna be great. And then, of course, when you're in it, it's different. So I have a go-getter attitude. Like, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Jump in completely
Hmm.
um, and be committed to it because I'm like, this, I'm not going to half-ass anything.
Right.
But as I started it, I realized it was like, let's talk about this one memory and what does it bring to another like web is what they would call it, another memory
Hmm.
web. And I just felt like the beginning was like, I'm never going to get out of this. At the other end, it
Yes.
was like, how beautiful to have talked about and managed all these different memories that I didn't realize were connected in my brain,
Hmm.
and then all these different parts of my life that I didn't realize I needed to work on or heal. All of that was captured. And
Hmm.
part of that was talking to you, where I was like, I'm never going to get out. I'm only adding to my list of the therapist saying, let's revisit that another time or next time. And it's just a growing list of things,
Yes.
but you encouraged me like you have to get through all of it, like it's not just a partial thing, it's a holistic healing.
Hmm.
And I think that's what is it was a surprising benefit to EMDR. I thought it was just a very specific category of what we would talk about, but really there was a lot of other childhood complex things that fed into where I was now.
Hmm.
And it was great to know that Louder Than Silence supported the holistic healing. And it was not just you're stuck in this little bubble, you can only talk about this one topic, when really it was clear that there were so many other memories that were tied to it.
Hmm.
And so, on one hand, it was like very discouraging in the beginning to be like, all right, I'm just going to talk about all these other topics. But at the end, it was like, how awesome did I have this opportunity to
Right.
talk about all these different things that I didn't even know I needed healing from?
Right. Yeah, there's so much there with what you just said, right? That like as we start unpacking, that there's the like, oh, and this is a part of it too, and oh, this is a part of it too. And there can be that moment of like you're like you've unpacked and now all of the stuff is like out in front of you and then being like, all right, do I have the fortitude? Like, can I like keep with like, all right, we're gonna talk about this thing now and we're gonna address this thing. And that can certainly be a lot. And on the other side of it, I think for me at least, it was helpful to kind of see that through line, like sort of what you were mentioning about the like, yes, like these memories are connected, right? That I think it's really easy to kind of want to chop ourselves up into pieces where it's like, this was the sexual trauma, and that is totally separate from like everything else that's ever happened to me. And
Yeah,
yes.
that's a good analogy about unpacking everything because I feel like during COVID, which is like when I first started
Right.
connected to this organization I went through and wanted to organize my pantry because I watched an episode of The Home Edit. And so I took everything out of my pantry and
Uh-huh.
my every horizontal surface was covered with stuff. But it was like, okay, I had to get all of this out to
Hmm.
clean it up, throw out things I don't need, and then organize it and put it back in. Like there was not a better way to do it. And
Right.
so I do feel like that was a great analogy of like it's overwhelming to see how much stuff that you've unpacked, but then you feel so much better when you put it back in. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, there's a plan, there's a organization to it, and then you feel so much better at the end. But yeah, the putting it back together is definitely what you need the
Yes.
help. And like you can do it, keep going. So if you leave it out, you're just like you look at this and it's not addressed and it's gonna make it worse.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think that um like you talking about organizing, right? Like your cabinets, there's always that moment when you're like, why did I keep this thing?
Yeah,
Right? And like that is also very true of like doing the mental, emotional, psychological work of
yeah,
EMDR where you're like, why have I been holding on to this whole
yeah,
time? And I think until you like bring it out in front of you and you can like see it, that's when you can actually make the decision. But when it's just like lurking in the back of the cabinet somewhere, like you don't even know that
yeah.
it's taking up space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a great analogy because it felt so good to throw away everything you didn't want to put back in, right? It's less stuff to put back into your life and organize. If you can just let go of it, it goes in
Hmm.
the trash. It wasn't doing anything for you. You don't want it there. And it's just less things that you have to think about and reorganize in your brain. So
Yes.
yeah, this is a great analogy.
Yes. I mean, I feel like we could spend this whole time just like unpacking this analogy. But yeah, it's I like how you talked about EMDR, right? Because it is like it's not from a clinician's perspective, it's not from like the therapist perspective, but helping people understand the like, all right, like this is practically speaking what it looks like to sit in this. And that's it is a very helpful analogy, so I'm glad you brought that.
Well, and I did not know too much about EMDR before joining
Hmm.
and part in it. So I think if someone who is listening has no idea what it is, it's like you don't have to have done all your scientific research before, just knowing that it's like good for you to do. And
Hmm.
part of that's because I just trust your judgment and everyone else has gone through it before me, knowing
Hmm.
that it's a life-changing process. But I learned a lot and was educated in the process of it. And a lot of it was like,
Right.
that makes so much sense. I'm not crazy in my head. Like the education part was very freeing and being
Hmm.
like, oh, there's like a scientific reason to like
Right.
why I felt this way or what my brain was holding on to. And then learning about the left and right brain healing process and connecting that was like
Hmm.
super cool. It's like a little bit nerdy, but at the same time, like I've learned a lot scientifically about what it does.
Right. Yes. I mean, and yes, same for me. I got into it just because like I had been recommended this therapy and like had read about it in a book. And now I understand so much more about it. And it started with the the validation really of the science and coming to this understanding of like, oh, it's not that there's something wrong with me. It's that like this is how my brain coped with what I was living through.
Mhm.
And here's how to like work through it and get to the other side. Like it was this, for me, it was very much this sense of like realizing that I wasn't like broken somehow, but in fact, like this is the mechanism that exists
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that other people experience the same mechanism was is a very helpful thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because I like toughen up when I experience things that are just hard. And I think having a lot of complex trauma in childhood that I thought was just normal, I think I've calloused myself. So when it came to, the sexual trauma part, I was like, add it to the list of unfortunate events that have happened to me. And so on one end, it kind of allowed me to still be high functioning in my
Right.
life. I was calloused to all these other traumas, but I don't think I realized like the impact that it had on my body until I started to unpack it. And I was like, oh, we're not meant to hold on to all these things. Like there are physical repercussions that I'm realizing are tied to it, not just I'm
Yes.
getting older and my body's falling apart.
Right. Right. And I think that that's such an interesting piece of what I've been working through too. Like, as you know, I've been kind of in the like body work
Hmm.
phase of my healing and understanding the like, sure, aging happens. And of course, aging happens, but recognizing the difference between aging is happening and I feel extra worn down because of the years of trauma, right?
Hmm.
Like those things can actually be addressed. Like those things can be healed and recovered. And I think that was a very fascinating thing to be like, Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Like my my calves hurt because of trauma. Who would have guessed?
Yes. It is
Yeah.
fascinating. It's a great work. So I'm like, what is happening?
Hmm. Yes. And there's for me, I've found that there's always something more to explore there too, as you like go down the unpacking, the healing. It's
Mhm.
like Russian nesting dolls sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so connected thought to that, one of the questions I wanted to ask is there something that you wish people knew about this healing work? Like you kind of touched on some of those things, but just wanted to hear maybe a little bit more
Yeah.
succinctly what your thoughts were on that.
I would say it's good to talk to others about their healing journey, but don't try to compare your journey to theirs. There's not a right or normal way to heal. And I think that's a hard answer to hear, but at the same time, hopefully it's affirming to somebody who maybe is going through the process of like, well, I don't feel a stark night and day difference after, X amount of days of therapy or sessions. I think everyone's body also receives it differently. I remember you mentioned that like sometimes your body's just tired and you had to like curl up in a ball and lay on the floor.
Right.
And so sometimes it's like, well, if I didn't feel that way, did I do it correctly? Or, am I just responding differently? So healing is, I feel like there's so many social media posts about it, like analogies, which are all very great and relatable, but you really can't compare yourself. And also, I like the one where it's kind of day to day, it's up and down, but if you zoom out, your trajectory is still on an upward
Hmm.
slope. And it's hard to see that when you're zoomed in. But if you take a step back, and I think this is where like gratitude journaling helps too, where you just write about things that you're grateful for, you remember the achievements that you've gone through because I think day to day you're kind of more disappointed in yourself if you're not where you think you should be versus looking back holistically. And you help me with this too, where you're like, I've seen a difference where I'm kind of stuck in my day to day. And I'm like, I don't know what I would tell somebody if there's like a
Hmm.
huge difference in my day to day life. But I think others are on the outside are better at seeing that. And it's almost a better testimony of like, hey, I've observed this about you. I've never said it, but this is what I've seen.
Right.
I think for me personally, that's more how I can relate to my trajectory of healing versus some people can feel a big physical, tangible difference from one
Right.
day to the next.
Right. Well, and I think so I would say I was in the camp of, especially when I was like in EMDR, where I had a few of these sessions where it was like physically I felt different, like when I left the session. And the flip side of like such a pronounced improvement is that when there's like something that feels like a regression or like something that feels like I'm not doing it right or I'm not as healed as I expected, then the like downside of that is feeling like, oh, I thought I was here and turns out I'm like still way down here. Or maybe I'm actually still in the middle, but because I felt the high and the low, I can't really sense where I'm at. And
Mhm.
so there is something to be said for like not feeling such a fluctuation in the improvement actually probably helped create a little bit more of a stable, like, yes, like I'm chipping away at this. And
Mhm.
um, that like you said, everybody's healing is a little bit different and it looks how it's going to look for them. And I think it's really helpful to hear that it wasn't like you had these like moments where you're just like, like sunshine, rainbows, like, light bulb turned on, like all of the metaphors, because, you know, it's not like that necessarily for everybody. I think for a lot of people, it's like only in the looking back, like you said, like the journaling, being able to see, oh, this is where I've come from,
Mhm.
that you can like find those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like I even double checked with my therapist and I'm like, are we done? Like, did we cover everything we were supposed to? Like, I thought I was going to be here forever. And she's like, yeah, no, we've addressed everything that you initially came in here for. Caveat is you could be in therapy for the rest of your life, but
sure.
you
Yeah,
know, this is different. EMDR specifically very focused. So,
right, right.
yeah, I had to do a double check of like, are we all on the same page? Am I good to go for now?
Yes. Um, I was this was not a question we talked about ahead of time, so feel free to be like, I don't want to talk about this. But one of the things that I have noticed in my life is the times when I see the most progress is actually in the times that are like acutely stressful or difficult because I can see the like, oh, like previously I would have reacted this way or like this would have been my automatic response. Have you noticed anything similar for yourself, or is your progress kind of marked a little bit differently for you?
Yeah. I would say the main motivation for me to dive into therapy is actually for my family. And so I have two young daughters, and my goal was not to bring generational trauma into my family and pass that on. And
Mhm.
so I've noticed that I used to be the most triggered after work at bath time when they're like screaming in the bathtub and the tile is like echoing. And I'm just like, I cannot handle it. Like I've
Right.
tired from work. I'm at my wit's end. I have no more patience. And the kids are like literally vibrating their screams into my ears. And I would
Hmm.
break down. I'm like, I can't do this. And so I have noticed that after more EMDR that I was like, you know what? I can kind of remove myself from the situation a little bit, like from a third eye perspective, kind of look in and be like, this is chaos, but at least I am not feeling like I can't breathe anymore.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's when I start contrast for like, this is helping me be a better mom and parent
Hmm.
instead of just like freaking out about the level of chaos. I can just try to calmly set an example and be like, Look at what's happening here. Is this okay? This is not okay." And calmly react, which I was not able to do
Hmm.
previously. And so I'm like, you know what? That's a step in progress because had I just yelled at my kids and they'd be like, you know what? I got yelled at as a kid. I'm going to yell at my kids too, kind of thing. And
Right.
so only because I felt like I had resources to like breathe. Like I used to think all this was like the voodoo yogi stuff, like deep breathing, but I'm like, it really makes a difference. And then the
It
scientific
does.
about how you're talking like breathing into the left nostril versus the right nostril. I'm like, what? There's a different part of your brain that it unlocks. So
Hmm.
more education is more resources for me that I've realized that I'm like, you know what? I may sound like a hippie person, but it actually really does help. And then it helps regulate, yeah, just my heart rate probably too.
Yes. Yes. I mean, sure, you might be a hippie, but if it works and it's tools that are beneficial, then like great, right? Like let's embrace the hippie
Yes,
label.
they studied it for years and years and years, so there's something to it.
Hmm.
The
There is
creative,
something to it. Yes.
yeah, meditating.
I think it's also great that you use this the idea of like the situation, like a daily normal situation, right? Of like bathing your girls as where you see progress, because I think that it can be easy for people like getting into the work or even in the middle of it to think it's this like kind of like big nebulous thing over there that like comes into my life that then like makes my life better, when
Mhm.
really it's like what you said, it's the like, oh, this is a thing I regularly do that now feels manageable, whereas before
Mhm.
it didn't. And
Yeah.
and so that you use that is actually like such a key like component of what we're talking about. So, um, I know that was a an off the cuff question, so thank you for rolling with it.
Yeah.
Yes. So I wanted to also chat about being on the board, right? Because that's a relatively new. You've been around for about a year now, which is somehow a year feels impossible that it's been that long. But um, why did you want to join the board of LTS besides being asked? Like,
I was gonna say
yeah.
I didn't know that was an option open to me until you invited me, and it was very exciting to get the call. I was overseas, I think,
Hmm.
and you
You were. Yeah.
called me, and I was like, I'm not in the country right now, but this is very exciting news. Um, my main thing was like, if you want me to be in the board, I am more than happy to, but I was not sure what I could offer. But it was really like any help that I can give back is something I would be happy to do because of how much LTS has given to my life. And so I've always kind of thought like I could never repay LTS unless I came about large amounts of money and was able to just knock everybody off the wait list single-handedly, you know? So a
Yes.
more realistic approach was giving my time and my connections and my resources to help the board. But it was not something that I knew to even ask for a position,
Mhm.
but when it was made available, I was like very honored to be asked. And then just, yes, whatever way I can help, not even knowing what that would look like. This is the first board I've been on. I don't really know what happens on other boards, but it just sounded very official. And I was like, if you could use my help, I'd be happy to give it.
Yes. I mean, it is official, yes. And it is a bunch of people who really care about this work who are doing this, right? So, um, I think, unlike a lot of other sort of roles where like the board is almost somewhere between like volunteering and being on staff, right?
Mhm.
That it's more responsibility than a kind of just like general volunteer position. But like you're not day in and day out like responsible for what's happening. Um, and yes, I remember that call, and you're just like, okay, I'll think about it. Like it was clear that it was a like, oh, I totally caught Amy off guard by even like bringing this up as an option. So that's also help inform how we approach people in the future too.
I'm not good at hiding my emotions, so if I feel surprised, you will know that I am surprised,
Yes.
and I honest feedback.
Well, that's a great thing, right? Because you know, vulnerability and transparency is a key part of what keeps something healthy, right? So I appreciate that you bring that to the team.
I do.
Um, so do you have any advice or thoughts for people who might be considering joining a nonprofit board? Like if this is something that other people are like, oh yeah, that might be cool. Like what do you wish you had known ahead of time, or like what should people know before they jump in?
Yeah. I think I think one of the questions you either asked me or it was part of the interview process was what do I bring to the board? And
Mhm.
I think that's something that we all should ask ourselves because I even had to ask you, like, why did you ask me to be in the board? Like, what do you see me contributing to this organization? And I think we all have that value, but we don't necessarily know it. So the first step is like, hey, looking at your personal strengths or what you bring in our, your particular personality, maybe how that can help. And then maybe just being more self-aware of our strengths and what we can offer. Because I think I was kind of just completely like, I don't have anything to offer. But then when I thought about it and you kind of probed and showed me what you saw in me, I was like, you know what? That is true. And I need to be confident and kind of own that. And being confident owning it, you will give more to the organization. So I think if you come to a board thinking, I don't have much to offer, then you won't really give as much insight or volunteer ideas. Whereas if you know that you are good at networking or I have a lot of connections to different groups of people and that would be beneficial for the organization, having those insights will more likely help you give more useful, um, what is the word? Like suggestions to the board because the board can only think about so many ideas. And so having more ideas brought to it gives more opportunity.
Mhm.
And I think having the self-confidence that you do have something to offer will be more helpful to the organization than sitting on a board and being waiting for someone to tell you what they would like you to do.
Right, right. One of the things that I often say when I do different trainings is like the better you know yourself, the better your interactions go. That that is exactly what you're talking about here, that being able to sit with the like, can I recognize what I do well? And can
Mhm.
I take action on those things? And can I like articulate that to other people? It's
Mhm.
something that a lot of us don't have a ton of experience, like really like advocating for ourselves and understanding our
Mhm.
strengths. Like outside of job interviews,
Mhm.
like when do you ever like truly sit with the like, okay, what am I excellent at? And what
Mhm.
does it look like to like bring that to life?
Yeah.
And it is something like one of the reasons why we want community members on the board is for that purpose, right? Is to help people see that they are excellent and
Mhm.
and help them really thrive as
Mhm.
well, right? That of course we want all of our decisions informed by our community, and that's the other side of it. But I think back to where I was at different points in my life, and if I had somebody who was regularly like, no, like I value your input and like want you here, like just
Mhm.
thinking about where I would be is something that I really care about, and I'm glad to hear that you've gotten to kind of see that for yourself a little bit.
I recently started, this is the whole journaling thing. I found a journal called Grounded Practice,
Hmm.
and part of it is writing your daily affirmations. And I'm like, what can I write about myself to affirm every day? It's like an exercise that I've been trying to do every day. And I sometimes am like, am I gonna write the same one over again? Are there other things that I am good at? And I have to write it down and physically like agree and
Hmm.
like write it on paper and tell myself this is true. And so that
Yes.
recent practice has gotten me to be like, okay, what else can I affirm myself today and
Hmm.
start my day that way? And that's been really helpful.
Yes. And it's helpful in the present moment, and like that then compounds, right?
Hmm.
That you are able to better hold on to those things, and then you being able to demonstrate those things then also like ripples out for other people. Like you are demonstrating this for your girls, you're demonstrating this for members of the LTS community,
Hmm.
and it's a really beautiful thing that like as we do these really uncomfortable things, like I am actually really good at this and
Hmm.
writing that down, like you're actually not only changing your life, you're changing other people's lives when you do that too. And it's this like kind of mind-boggling thing to realize that it doesn't just stay within us. It like makes such a big impact too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the nuance of specifically talking about the LTS board, where we're a small organization versus a
Hmm.
very large board. I think maybe in larger boards, you already kind of have that confidence because you're applying for a position with lots of board members and committees, maybe, and you're trying to
Yeah.
impress them. Versus LTS, I feel like the people who want to be on this board are more humble because they just want to help a really good organization that speaks to them. It's not necessarily to tout on someone's resume. I'm bored of this organization. It's really,
Hmm.
I want to help. Where can we help and get this going so that we can help other survivors and extend our
Right.
reach to people?
Right. Yes, it's like we are a small organization and we are a small board for sure. And that allows us a lot of opportunity that that we can select people who are on the board because they like deeply care about this. And it means a bunch of different things about the composition of the board, but I think like you said, um, we are at that point in the organization's history, and I don't know that we'll ever want a board that's 18 people who just want to be on our board for the sake of their resume.
Mhm.
Um, maybe never say never, but but I love the way the board is comprised currently, and of course we'll grow and we'll bring more people on, but it will still be the same passion for this particular cause.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I think for our board, the advice would be like, your ideas are great, bring them,
yes.
versus like what I guess I was trying to say was of our larger board, it might be more of a competition
Mm,
of not confidence, but just like I come from a really great background, listen to me, versus our board people may be shy to bring their ideas. And I would encourage like everyone's ideas are great
mhm.
and we want to hear them because we selected you to be on the board for a reason. Whether or not
Yes.
you see it or not, we see it and we want you to feel empowered to share your ideas and
Yeah.
dive deep into what else you can bring that
Yes.
maybe we don't know yet.
Yeah, and we can all learn from each other, right?
Mhm.
And I think part of what we're demonstrating within the LTS community, and also this is true of the board, is that like this is what a safe community looks like. It looks like encouraging people to say like where you are at is teach like we can be teachable to understand like your perspective, your experiences, and it doesn't have to look a certain way that we might see kind of in like corporate
Mhm.
world, that we are demonstrating the like yes, all of us can learn from each other and want to hear the perspectives. Like it is crucial that we all
Mhm.
have wildly different perspectives and understand them, because if it's all the same perspective, then we end up in an echo chamber, which
Mhm.
I think like we see what the outcome of echo chambers looks like, and intentionally making sure that we're hearing from all different perspectives is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, so connected thought is there anything you kind of touched on a little bit, but is there anything like specific that surprised you about making the transition to the board in this line of work, like in dealing with sexual violence specifically?
Yeah. Um, I think I didn't realize how difficult it was to get grants and just the money portion of it because it is very specific, but also there's not that many grants for it.
Mhm.
Um, or I guess not as wide reaching. I think the mostly the financial aspect is like, okay, these programs are so great. They cost X number of dollars. We need to go get more. And I'm like, how else can we get more? And I think I just wanted to problem solve. And I'm like, I don't have an easy solution. I wish there was more of a sense of urgency that everybody in the world sees. Let's just donate to Louder Than Silence. And so
Mhm.
I think that um, kind of like passion disconnect versus like reality, what everybody else sees was shocking and also is a good like fire in me to be like, how can we get more funding? But at the same time, I'm like, why does nobody else also see this urgency and want to give to this? Um, and I think that's just maybe the nuance of not everybody who agrees that this is a great organization wants to publicly be giving them money, maybe, or if they're not ready to be connected to a community that is vulnerable like this, or maybe there's other reasons that are not
Mhm.
as apparent and logical to me for everyone being like, this is a great cause. Let's give to this cause.
Yes.
Um, so it's a little bit of, yeah, having to understand the nuance of this particular group of survivors that we're targeting and supporting,
Mhm.
and not everyone being comfortable with broadcasting support for it.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it was just eye-opening getting on the board and looking at the books. And I'm not a big finance person, but I'm like, we just need more funding. How can we get
And I'm like,
funding?
yes, yes, we do. That is accurate. Yes, it's I mean I remember when we were like first going through the budget when you like had just come on the team, and you're just like, but like we need more money, and it's like yes, like we need more money. That is accurate. We are doing that, and like you said, it's the like trying to navigate, or at least for me, I'll say it for me. I won't speak for you, but the like internal friction that comes from okay, like people are verbalizing support, like people generally seem to understand this is needed. Where is that disconnect? Because like I care so much about this. How do I help other people care as much
Yeah.
as I do about this? And like having to work through a lot of my own assumptions and beliefs around what support looks like and means and all of those things. But yeah, I think you use nuance a couple of words, like a couple of times when you were describing this, and what we are doing is very nuanced, right? We're talking about like long-term interventions. We're talking about like being with people for years, and a lot of our metrics are hard to pin down. Like in my bones and in my soul, I know we are helping change people's lives. Like I know that, but I can't tell you how many panic attacks people haven't had, right? Like I can't tell you how many nights of sleep people have had that are good now that like previously weren't, right?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to kind of be able to like, yeah, we have prevented 427 panic attacks because like we don't know, right? Because they're not existing anymore. And so like trying to navigate the like, all right, how are we even able to communicate just like the sheer level of impact in people's lives when we're talking about something that, like you said, it's a web. There's like so many pieces connected. There's so much to unpack.
Mhm.
So how are we explaining the like, this is what your money does
Yeah. And
when, yeah.
you do a good job of staying calm with like, yes, we can take on anybody who needs the resources and we will make it happen. And then on the board side, when we look at the numbers, we're like, how are you so calm? We need more funding. Like you do a good job of not pressuring people, but at the same time, like the curtain that I've, been behind and can now see, I'm like, there's a sense of urgency
Mhm.
that needs to be balanced of like, if you really do believe in this, we need the money now. But also, like, nobody panic. We can continue to serve everybody. So I think you do a really good job of staying calm. Whereas I would be like, let's do this. We are about to, like, need to change the plan. So that's why I'm not in your role because I don't think I could stay composed and calm and talk to each community member with, assurance. Whatever you want to do at your timing is right when you're ready, that kind of thing. So as a leader, you do a really good job of that. But that is something where I was surprised on when I got on the board of like, how are you so calm?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that recognition. Um, and it comes down to a lot of the like, if I believe this work needs to exist, which I do,
Hmm.
then I need to also believe that like it will come like that the world, the community is going to support this work happening, right?
Hmm.
Um from my own like faith perspective is like if I believe that this is my calling,
Hmm.
then like can I trust that the divine is also conspiring to provide the resources for this thing to
Hmm.
exist and to flourish in the world? And so it is part of it is faith and part of it's planning and like part of it is making connections and like strategizing. It's like it's all of it, right? Like we can't only rely on strategizing in our head, and we also
Hmm.
can't only rely on the like, yes, things will just like magically come together because I have faith, right? Like it's all of it. Um, or at least that is my approach and my perspective. And
Hmm.
also there are times where I feel like I'm screaming inside and like outside I'm just like, yeah, everything is okay. It's gonna work out. So it's a fun mix for sure.
Well, that makes you feel more human than that you just on the inside may be screaming some days, but you learn to be very calm on the outside. And I'm hopeful that, these conversations in the podcast will just show people a little bit more of like, hey, even if we seem like everything is fine and dandy. We could always use more funding. We have so
Mhm.
many ideas. You have great programs in mind that you're like, hey, if we ever get the funding, we would love to do this. Like you
Yes.
mentioned helping like EMDR 2.0, like that would be so great for me in this stage right now too. But I'm like,
Hmm.
we don't have that yet, but it's going to be a goal. It's going to be super exciting when we get there. We've
Yes.
got great plans. And so on both ends, there's momentum and excitement building, and we just are kind of rolling with it as the funding comes in.
Hmm.
So it's great that we have plans and ideas that require the additional funding. And
Yes.
then it's a goal for us to go be excited about reaching, and we
Hmm.
can hopefully look back and be like, well, look what we did when we thought was impossible to
Yes.
get to. It's
Yes.
happening and we're believing that it's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah, I remember when the first person was in EMDR that like my goal was like just to be able to pay for that one person to, you know, be able to complete her round of EMDR. And now we're up to between like graduates and like people currently in EMDR, I think we're at like 25, right?
Wow.
And it's like, right, at this point, it's like, yeah, of course we're going to do 25. Like, how are we getting to 200, right? Like, and so just to see how like you have to lay the foundation and you have to like keep like figuring out all these steps.
Mhm.
So we're going to look back someday and be like, oh, remember when it was really stressful when we were at 25 people? And it's all like it's going to come together, right?
Yeah,
Because we have a whole team of people who are just like, yeah, this needs to exist.
yeah.
And we have a community who's like, yes, this needs to exist. We need
Mm.
this. So we're gonna keep figuring it out And I also like to remind myself that for all the organizations out there that are in year 30, 50, 70, 100, they were also in year six at some point.
Mhm.
And like that reminder of, yeah, they also had to figure out this phase. And they
Mhm.
did. It's possible that like that's where we're at now, that we're setting the stage so that at year 50 we're like, oh yeah, we made it through year six despite everything
Mhm.
that was happening in year six, right?
Yeah.
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 Great perspective.
All right, so as we are approaching the end, and I've been asking you a bunch of questions, I always like to end with, do you have anything that you would like to ask me?
Yeah. Um, we kind of touched on this is a lot for you. You do a good job of being very composed, but what do you do for yourself at home to help kind of balance the heavy work that you do?
Um, what a great question. And it's a great question because it's actually something I'm asked quite a bit, and I don't know if I've ever like publicly shared, not for any particular reason other than
Mm.
it just hadn't come to be. Um, the ways that I take care of myself are that I have some pretty strict boundaries around like phone use, in particular. And so like I have a hard cutoff at night, I have a hard like start time in the morning. I have one weekend day every week where I have a no phone day, right? So I'm like very like all of my alerts are turned off except for texts and phone calls. Like that's the only notifications I get. So I have a lot of like there's a lot of things going on in my brain, right? So I don't want the additional distraction, right? Like I don't need a thing being like, oh, you have to focus on me now. So it's really important for me that I am intentionally deciding like this is what I want to interact with at this moment in time. Um, so I would say that's kind of the primary way that I do that. But then I also really see a ton of benefit in being outside. So every day I take my dogs for a long walk. Again, no phone, right? Like I am just in nature with them, like focused on the moment. My garden is also a way to like I'm playing in the dirt, trying to figure out how to keep my plants alive despite Texas insects, which are just like I don't understand how anything grows with all of the things that are here. Um, it's very amusing and frustrating. But it's really the like intentional rest that I would say is the thing that I prioritize sleep almost to like a comical level. And specifically a few years ago, I decided I needed to really incorporate things that brought me joy. And I think that that was a like an inflection point in my life that when I take the time to do the things that just like help me feel like a human and alive, that's when I feel like I have more capacity for sitting in the difficult conversations, the challenges, the emotional strain, the just mental strain of founding an organization and growing it. Um, so the more I can sit with not, I don't do an intentional like gratitude journal practice, but I do an intentional practice around like when I'm feeling peaceful throughout the day, like when I experience something that brings me joy, like when can I experience something that is like lighthearted? Like that is something that I really am focused on incorporating more this year that I haven't in my life had a lot of levity. And so like trying to bring more levity into my life. Like um, just like appreciating when my dogs are being goofy and like, I don't know about your dogs, but like mine do things to make me laugh. Like they understand the concept of like, I enjoy this. And like, so they will do something goofy just to make me laugh. And so like taking the moments to like actually be like, I am here present with this creature who like makes my life better because he's like a goober. Like
Yeah,
those are the things that I'm really working on intentionally having as like a big focus in my life.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
take on a lot of what you talked about. Although gardening is still out of my realm of possibilities. I already know it. I can't handle the ups and downs of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that you've been working on it, so I was
Yes.
hoping that you still are going after that.
Yes. Every day. Like when I take a break, like I'm out there just like puttering around, seeing how things are going, trying to figure out what's going wrong. But yes, it's definitely the more I garden, the like literally more grounded I am. Like that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So, is there anything else you would like to chat about before we call it on this interview?
No, I think just closing for that last question is I think it's great that you set an example for us. I think you're always kind of the forefront of like, you started where we were and look at where you are now, and you're still on your journey, but it's great that you are setting an example for all of us in the community as well. And so, yeah, your physical healing as well, now grounding yourself and purposely finding joy every day is all stuff that is a great example to the rest of us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It still feels a little uncomfortable to think about like me being an example to other people. But I am trying to sit in that discomfort, and I appreciate the acknowledgement that um, that this is work worth doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Amy. This was a lovely discussion, and I'm really excited to get this out into the world for other people to get to know you better too. So thank you for taking the time to do this today. And um, yeah, so thank you all for listening. If you would like to support our work, you can visit louderthansilence.org. You can follow us on Instagram at louderthansilence.org, and subscribe to the podcast so you can get the most current episodes. And we'll see you next month.